All right. Welcome, Jeff, to Parasocial, the people behind the protocols. Thank you for joining today.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Sweet. Um, Jeff, you've been a longtime friend of Para's, longtime fellow San Franciscan. Maybe let's start this off with what you're building, what your role is, and go from there.
Yeah, sure. So I am building Stablecoin.xyz. It's the SBC stablecoin, and we go by the stablecoin company. So we are focused on a couple of things here. Like one is we're part of the Braille ecosystem. We actually spun out of Braille a couple of years ago, and that's a stablecoin issuing platform. So kind of a main focus, like SBC as like the Braille's canonical stablecoin. And what that means is if you're launching a stablecoin on Braille, SBC can be, a supportive partner in terms of helping out with on and off ramps, helping out with some developer tooling, maybe some liquidity in the DeFi markets to help, jumpstart utility for your stablecoin, and just be kind of a platform partner there. That's like the initial thing. We really want to be a supportive ecosystem partner there. And then we're also like really into, building stablecoin utility for ecosystems and networks. So lately we've been building a lot around activating and enabling the agent payments tooling. And that's been a lot of excitement the last few months. So a lot of what we're taking the company and really trying to build expertise and launch products is in that realm. But but originally a Braille spin out, and it's been pretty exciting, just kind of like jumping into the stablecoin world and working with partners like Para for all of our wallet infrastructure stuff. And it's great.
Amazing. You mentioned a few things that I wanted to touch on here a bit more. One is, and I know like our whole, and we talk a lot about this like personally as friends, that stablecoins are a big part of network infrastructure. And so I'm curious how, when you were internal to Braille, how that came about, that like SBC needed to exist as part of like the broader Braille network infrastructure, and why having a stablecoin was so important in that mission.
Yeah, so I think when networks will partner with Braille to be supported by the platform to issue stablecoins, and sometimes they'll have their own stablecoin, which makes sense, or they could use SBC as like the first initial native stablecoin that's like a trusted fiat-backed stablecoin on their network. It doesn't mean we're going to bring in the volume of some of the larger stablecoins, but we can start to activate that for developers and apps. That's like they're just wanting to start build. They need a stablecoin. They need a trusted source, U.S. regulated. We provide that kind of like initial layer of stablecoin payments in a sense. So that's really important. I think we work with networks to just like make sure that's available, and if there is tooling to like help developers build faster on those networks early on. We've launched some SDKs and some app kits, and some of it includes Para's wallets to make sure it's fast to like build these stablecoin integrations. But it's pretty basic. We want to make sure there's a stablecoin option out there for these early ecosystems, and we're kind of filling that hole.
And would you say the difference between that is the difference between like SBC, the stablecoin, and the company that's focused on kind of the developer toolkits, the frameworks that allow for some of these like agentic finance use cases and like developers to get kickstarted with building on chain? Would you say that's like the primary difference between the two?
Yeah, so SBC as a stablecoin itself, like I think of it as part of the toolkit in a sense. Like you get this fiat-backed native stablecoin, but it is also it's its own product in a sense. So anytime we're thinking about like, well, we have SBC, but does it have to be like the main driver of the company? We can like focus on like, okay, how do you think about adding value to stablecoin utility for a brand new stablecoin or a new network? It doesn't have to be specifically because we want SBC to grow or be included in that flow. It's kind of like that additional like, hey, it's there to be used, and there's a lot of utility in terms of having, we're already kind of a cross-chain activated stablecoin. It's like a layer 0 integration. When a new stablecoin comes to a platform, having access to that type of platform or that network would be really useful. So we provide some of that service. But and I think you get to a place where we want to be this neutral, friendly stablecoin the same time. So if people want to launch their own, totally fine, or they want to use something else in their platform, if there's a way we can integrate SBC into those flows to make it better and easy, that's totally fine.
Yeah. And I think SBC does a really good job of that, of being this kind of like neutral stablecoin that people can either use as like a starting point for their own developer ecosystem, or kind of fully entrench it in their ecosystem and use it as like the canonical stablecoin. So one question I was interested in is you previously founded Glow Dollar. Did you have any learnings from that experience that led you to building SBC in the way that you're building it today? And what part of, like, I'm very curious about how Glow Dollar was received in the industry at the time that you were building it at, because I think that time was very, very different from what we're seeing today with like regulatory clarity and the sort of adoption we're seeing now.
Yeah, and that's a good question, because like Glow was like my first like industry attempt at stablecoins. Some of my background is more academic. I was kind of teaching the fintech blockchain world, but Glow was like, okay, let's try to put a product in the market and see how it works. And I think the mission of Glow, it's very simple. It was, and still is, like the market cap generates yield from its reserves, and instead of like thinking of it as a private company that just like captures all that value as network effects grow, let's give it back to, well, one, like society, if you want to do like a nonprofit push, or like there was a focus, and the focus now is like public goods and supporting ecosystems there. That's all, I think, a great model to think about. And there's been a lot of interesting experiments in crypto, and like how do we build better systems of allocating capital, and this kind of fit into that narrative. So it was a good timing in terms of that, because people were like, oh, retroactive funding, all these grants. And we didn't, like, early on, it was like, okay, the stablecoin itself didn't have utility by itself. It was more like the mission was the utility, which I think got a lot of interest. Like, this is a great model. This should be the model for like the biggest stablecoin in the world. But how do you fund the actual growth of it without your own revenue stream or your own product distribution? That gets really hard.
Yeah.
So SBC is like, we have our stablecoin, and we do a lot of like partnership, we can do the rewards and all those things to help support the ecosystems. But at the same time, like, our venture-backed company is focused on like more product and tooling and innovations that help create that utility and distribution. That's the main difference. Versus like we were thinking like the mission would be the distribution. That didn't quite get there yet, but I'm still optimistic we can get some growth on the Glow Dollar side. But at the same time, these are network effect type, like large scale type of industries. And but as the industry grows overall, I think there's gaps to where like multiple products and multiple angles to stablecoins can exist. So at scale.
Yeah. And it's interesting with Glow Dollar, like we've had, this, but like we've had like para customers like independently know about Glow Dollar and
Right.
then meet you and be like, oh my God, you're the founder. So it's cool to hear that a lot of that experience is still so relevant today in the company that you're building now. One thing that stuck out to me when you were talking about Glow Dollar is how you thought about yield and reserves for Glow Dollar. I think it's very similar to actually how you think about yield with SBC. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so in terms of like SBC, it generates yield from the reserves, and that's a source of revenue. But we've thought of like, okay, how do you like use that source of funds to support ecosystems? One, you can do like this reward type of mechanism, which a lot of stablecoin companies do and platforms do. But it's also, you can embed some of these things into like the products. So like gas extraction, we built a lot of that tooling there about a year ago. But just subsidizing gas and making like, you don't have to worry about your gas budgets. We'll use the SBC revenue source or whatever it's kind of generated from that market cap and, subsidize gas. That's a very simple thing to do. It's not very expensive. But as those things become, higher like usage and bigger scale, I think that's going to be a nice little utility. It's like, we just think of like, is there a way we can reduce the friction of using stablecoins and the actual revenue generating aspect of SBC or a fiat-backed stablecoin lets you start to think about how you can reduce those frictions. So it's not like a huge kind of driver of like the rewards or the funds, but it's just a simple thing to just embed in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the fact that you need dust in the first place in order to like
Hmm.
start transacting with crypto, I think is like it's a huge barrier. And so the fact that the yield is actually used in some of these use cases that power the developer tooling is really, really interesting.
And we do
Um,
the same thing. X402 facilitators, like you go to ours, it's free right now. Um,
yeah,
and like like Third Web, Coinbase One, they do charge a few bips. That's just more friction to worry about. Let's just at our scale, we can easily subsidize that right now with the SBC yield. Yeah.
so cool. Are you seeing certain use cases that take advantage of that? Like I know obviously that you've done a lot of work with the Radius ecosystem and their entire use cases around like microtransactions and agentic payments. Are you seeing that your use cases are mapping nicely or uniquely to the value props that SBC provides?
Yeah, and so Radius is a great example of how we work with the network. And Radius was launching. Their whole mission was around like, let's build the most scalable system for a future that is like all agentic, not all, but lots of agentic transactions at the very micro transaction level. This is talking about like Cloudflare level of scale. Let's get rid of the ad based business models and focus on like we're actually consuming content and resources through X402 agentic machine to machine payments. Um, and so our partnership there, like SBC was that first native stablecoin on the platform, and it became like the core stablecoin. It's also convertible automatically into gas. So it's like very seamless. You hold SBC, make transactions, it gets converted, and the transaction happens. Um, and then we also built like the X402 facilitator, kind of started to unlock and enable those things early on, and just be a partner in terms of like SDKs and app kits to help people build on it. Very like early network still, very much like experimental in terms of how they're scaling. But I'm very optimistic this is going to be a big solution for this new world of microtransactions and the gated resource economy. But yeah, it's like SBC is a very simple model. It's like, hey, we can provide that native stablecoin, that value on your network from day one, and it worked pretty well.
One thing for the listeners is a lot of agentic finance is so nascent and there's like a variety of different use cases between like microtransactions, X402 enabled APIs. There's just a lot of different ways that we also see like card issuance with agentic finance. So like there's a lot of different ways that like one could think about agentic finance and commerce. You are at the forefront of a lot of this. Like like why stablecoins for agentic finance? And B, what are the flavors of agentic finance that you're the most excited about and like see a lot of at SBC?
Yeah, those are good questions. So the why stablecoins, it's always interesting. Uh, I kind of put it in a couple of buckets. So like agentic commerce, which would include like, oh, I like my agent's buying actual stuff for me, and maybe I have a connected credit card or ACH, whatever. That's fine. That's like very, not often you're buying pairs of shoes. It's not like every millisecond of consumption there. That could be any type of payment, protocol. Credit cards could be stable coins, could be whatever, Fed now. That's fine. Where I get really interested in like what's going to be like the future of the internet, which I mentioned, is like if we do have a place where agents are most of the traffic and volume, any ad model, or even like you could think about like this, even the SaaS model start to kind of like fall away too if you're not like selling a platform to a user. That's where you're going to have like, okay, this is the resource that's out there. I'm going to have to pay for it. Maybe it's per use, or maybe it's some type of like subscription to it, but that could be done in stablecoins very efficiently. And I'll give you this, like everybody knows, like programmability is still a really important selling point. The 18 decimals or 6 decimals, whatever it is, that's enough too. That's important for these microtransactions. And I think just it's instant settlement, like the tracking is very straightforward and easy to do. So I don't have like any, surprise of like why stablecoins will win there, but it's just kind of a basic, like easy, fundamental primitive for a simple like machine to machine microtransaction. And as like organizations, like actual like traditional financial organizations and payment companies adopt stablecoins, it just becomes part of that stack. And I think if you're a user, what's the cheapest form quickest way to implement it. Stablecoins become the option that kind of default. Builders will just go to the default easy solution. That's the way I view it. Yeah, and I think, this is kind of, I do believe in a world where like I have I'm working on something, I need the data, but I also need the work done. So my agent will talk to another agent. And that would be just a stablecoin transaction, but that agent might go and purchase 5 different data sets that's doing the work for me. And it would allocate that stablecoin payment through those 5 different data sets, and then do the work and provide it back to me. So I think there's a way of easily dispersing funds for all these resources that stablecoins just default are the best way to do it.
And I mean, I see this today with like the AI platformification that's happening, where like all these like AI tools are trying to like SaaSify their models and like aggregate all the different AI sources in like one thing. And I often like find myself questioning how many SaaS tools like I actually want to be paying for, just because a lot of my personal workflow like can be built with internal tools, or like I can just kind of spin up like my own little Slack agent, and it's not scalable for everybody, but it works great for like me and my team, and that's fine. And so I often do think a lot about, how easy would it be if I could just like ping, this one like SaaS tool and just like get one scrape of information that I need one time, instead of having to pay like a monthly subscription and like maintain the platform costs of, keeping all my information there.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
And it's the way I look at it. This is a little in the weeds too, but like each like SaaS platform you currently pay for now, it's like its own data model and own like context. What needs to happen is like you start to build your own unified data model that you control, that uses other services, and like you have your own context. That's what makes your agent trustworthy and useful. And you can't have all these contexts and data models separated. So yeah, I think that's the way to think about it. So
Yeah.
who knows?
No, it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel this in my like day to day, where I'm just like, why am I paying for the constant like maintenance of this thing, where instead I just need like a one time like push of information. One thing that you guys recently launched is the agents platform, built on the X402 protocol for paying for APIs and spinning up agents leveraging the SBC stablecoin. Can you walk me through what that use case looks like? And I know you did a little bit, but what does it actually look like in practice with the usage you're seeing today? And like, who are you seeing use it in real life?
So yeah, I'm excited about this because there's like 2 angles of uses. You have the buyer agent and you have the seller agent. And this platform basically unlocks both of those things. And it's as simple as like, okay, for the buyer, let's spin up a wallet. They can fund that wallet, and their agent is connected to that wallet in a very secure way, no exposing their private keys, stuff like that. Very simply, having configuration around policies about spending, which resources are you allowed to spend with, those type of things. And that's, we use Para there. Some wallets are available through Para. And that's very simple. It's like, okay, you want your agent to have a wallet, you want to have policies around it and like control over it and tracking. And then that can go out and pay for resources that are X402 gated. We also have included the MPP protocol. So like as that starts to build and grow as well, that buying agent will have that capability to make those transactions. But then I get most excited about the seller side. So this is like the endpoint side. This is where we make it really easy. If you have an endpoint, let's say just a simple API that's providing data, any resource really, you can just spin up a wallet that receives funds. We have like a walkthrough of like an automated prompt that actually enables the X402 gate or the MPP gate with connected to that wallet, connected to that API, and then you have your tracking and basically if you want to implement like webhooks and kind of like build that into a developer flow, that's all built there too. So early kind of places where I'm exploring is like this. Anybody who has an API is going to be the market, right? Or like some resource. But I do think there's some interesting things around like the financial industry, the financial research and data there, as like, okay, we do have a lot of flows of like people needing data real time, people are building bots, trading algorithms. That's just kind of a natural, like, okay, I'm going to be looping this real-time data into it. I have that data source that should be gated as a revenue stream because it's valuable.
So cool. I actually didn't realize that the seller side was also live. I knew the
Yes, yeah,
buyer side was live, but I actually didn't know that. So that's so cool to
yeah,
that finally clicked in my head.
yeah. And I think that's, and we're just getting these things launched. I think I look at it as like, this is the developer user agent kind of like platform product that we're kind of building more and more capabilities around. And then on the ecosystem side, like we have an agent stack that's developing its own kind of capabilities to where like X402 facilitators, SDKs, wallets that, are configurable with agents and kind of like making sure that's unlocked. Those type of things is like a separate type of go-to-market. This is more like the distribution to the broader audience that are interested in agent payments.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so the ideal seller kind of ICP in this case is like anyone that has an API that is looking to monetize it basically via being able to pay for it via X402 APIs essentially.
Right. Yeah. I would say like gated resource. It's and like you can use X402 as the protocol. MPP is another option. Like Google has the A2A stuff. Like as more of those come about, and I'll mention we work with Canton a lot too. Like there's like a P402 type of implementation there, so we're exploring how that can be implemented. And yeah, it's all kind of it's really interesting things to build. Like I look at it as like okay, we can activate both network / ecosystem and developer user agent side. That's a really nice package when we go to these ecosystems because like okay, developers want this tooling, we need this activated. Stablecoins there right away. So I really think it's an interesting package that provides a lot of utility for these networks.
I think that's the coolest part about what you're building, where you have such a strong developer go to market, but you also have a marketplace go to market, and you're building both sides of it out. And I think that's such a fascinating business to be operating. One thing that you covered this a little bit, but for our listeners, I wanted to cover this. A lot of us know what X402 is. Could you explain a little bit more about the MPP protocol and also some of the other protocols that you're now supporting?
Yeah, so I would say so X402, it's basically, I'm going to start with that because the 402 like HTTP response header, that's where it's developed from. And it's basically when I go to a web resource, like a website, I get a response that says payment required. And this protocol lets me make that payment. And we do it through stablecoins, very seamless. So you won't even know you're making the payment. You just have a connected wallet, takes a fraction of a penny for most simple data points. That's like the fundamental innovation with that, original 402 kind of layer. And then MPP was built on top of some of those ideas. And I don't know all the details, but they have a method where this was developed by Stripe, Paradigm, and the Tempo blockchain, where you don't have to have like the facilitator model. It's a little different setup, and that's the fundamental difference. And MPP is also, I would say, like has a broader configurability kind of, I don't know, layer. It's like you can start it, and this is where I think the Stripe angle comes in, like using other types of payment methods other than like a stablecoin. So I would say X402 is more stablecoin native, MPP is more flexible. And I think, when I mentioned like P402, which is starting to spin up on the Canton network, it's more like the 402 stablecoin focus. But I would anticipate like there's going to be other types of models out there that will try to explore other types of payments too. But I think fundamentally the 402 thing seems to be very useful nowadays. What implementation of the type of protocol, the specification, looks like X402 is a very like leading edge kind of like there's partnerships going around with that. That's probably a good one to like keep focusing on. Whether the other ones kind of build their own traction or like unique utility around it, we'll just have to keep an eye on.
Yeah, that makes sense. Very cool. In terms of the networks that you kind of are working with currently, tell us a little bit more about the Canton partnership and also how you think about acquiring new networks to support, and like whether there's a strategy there, or like how you think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So early on with Canton, we became an early validator to support their network. And then as developers, we're like, okay, we want to build on this very unique, very different network that was, privacy configurable, not EVM, its own language. We became that go-to kind of stablecoin company to like launch an app with a native stablecoin. That was kind of like the initial use case. Okay, we are supported on Braille. There's an on and off ramp to the Canton network, which is super valuable as like a new network. And then SBC could be like that first stablecoin you could build around. Now like USDCX is there, and there's some other stablecoins that are launching, a few like through Braille, which is great. So there's like a broader stablecoin option. But early on, it was nice to see like, okay, SBC provided that just straight up utility of like, I'm going to build this new app on a whole different type of platform. Let's build around SBC to unlock some of these features. And then like furthermore, like I think us as an early partner in understanding that ecosystem, we're looking forward to what does the ecosystem need. And it seems like, I don't think Canton's going to be like, we're all like the gazillions of transactions are going to happen for like agentic payments, but there's going to be a lot of resources in that network through interesting privacy configurations that could be monetizable resources. And if there's a way we could use 402 with connecting it to the Canton network, I'm going to explore that. So that's our focus right now in terms of the layers of agent payments and that kind of less on like making the transactions of payments, more on like what resources are going to be available on Canton.
Yeah, I never thought about X42 intersecting with privacy.
Yeah, it's I haven't wrapped my head around it yet, but if there is a way, like, because there's a lot of platforms that are being built on Canton that are like capital market stuff.
Right.
That's really interesting data, and if part of that data can be something that other outside organizations would utilize,
Sure.
you'd want to make sure you can configure it to be like available, but you'd have to have a method for like consuming it and pay for it too. So
Fascinating. That makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's all to be determined, but I think it's an interesting space to
Yeah.
keep exploring.
You
Yeah.
you mentioned this in the beginning, where you think like where you were saying that there's an interesting thread around like financial markets and the information that's around it being consumed in this like gated way one time or a few times, and being able to like allocate resources to it is actually quite interesting, just given that everything is API based these days. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense. um Got it. And so with Canton Radius, that all makes sense. Are there specific, just given how like early you were to both ecosystems, are there specific like signals that you look for in supporting certain chain ecosystems you're excited about? Is it about the use cases? Is it about like the applications building on them? How do you kind of procure and select like who you want to work with so early on?
Yeah, it's interesting because well, like one layer is like the Braille platform provides a lot of value to a network. If they're going to be working with Braille, like we're happy to support like the initial like growth of that network, because it's like unlock with stablecoin issuance. How does SBC kind of help create utility early on with people who are using that platform on that network? And then there's also, so that's kind of like first place. Like if a network wants to have stablecoin issuance, will this be a big like strong supporter as like, you know, that's an easy funnel for us in that sense. And then I would say like there's a lot of interest around this like activating agent payments from existing networks. So I'm excited about some of like the ones that have been around a long time, like Stellar. A lot of payment flows are there.
Sure.
It's not EVM. It's a little bit different. It's like, is there unique kind of like differentiation or the unique utility that we can build with agent payments using Stellar? We're exploring some ideas there. And then like one that's really kind of a lot of use case for agent payments, Solana is there. That's not a brand new one either. But if there's going to be volume, how can we support some of those networks? And then like, yeah, I'm always open to talking to people who want to like launch a new network. So it's not just me trying to sell a package. It's more like, how can I help you launch that network and have utility from day one? And that's I can be the initial conversation. We can talk about that, and it's like, okay, it makes sense for the Braille integration. It makes sense to, have this early utility, but it's pretty open ended in that sense. We are a small team, but yeah, as we grow, we'll add more like capacity to keep building there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's pretty open ended right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. One thing you mentioned about the agent platform is you have a set of like policies that you can select, like you can kind of configure on the wallets. Are you finding that the policies or the kind of rules that you're building around the agent wallets look different per chain ecosystem or per use case?
I don't think I've had enough data points. A lot of our focus so far is like we really wanted to ramp up the radius side of things. But yeah, I don't have a good answer. I don't think there would be like the policies aren't that sophisticated in
But
terms
the fact
of
that you have them, I think, is like a big win because a lot
yeah.
of these agentic wallets actually don't have policies,
Okay.
and it's quite scary.
Yeah, and yeah, that's a good point. There should be policies, but yeah, I don't know. Like for like specific networks, I could see something where like, if we had some connection to like Canton resources on the endpoint side, I could see those policies being much different as like a group of users than
Yeah.
someone like using base or even radius in that sense.
Right. Something like a spending limit. I think that could be really interesting. I think especially in the context of like financial data.
Well, I was thinking like allow lists, like you only interact with certain resources, like
Yeah.
because you want to be like institutionally like sure you're not like transacting with a random, I don't know,
Yeah.
endpoint. So
Yeah, it's something that we think a lot about as well because yeah, so many of these agent wallets are just like are scary or you just don't have control over like what contracts they're interacting with and then they inevitably get drained. And so I think the fact that you guys even have a loose policy engine around these wallets is really nice because there's at least something there instead of nothing.
yeah, and over time, like we'll keep building around that. It's like it's just a start, but you have to have some base level of control. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, More on the human side now. Actually, this might even be relevant for the agentic use case. You have spoken a little bit about the fact that the ticker will eventually get abstracted away, like from the user experience. And I'm curious how you think about that, both in the agentic finance world and the regular kind of payments world, and whether you think we're close to that or far away from that, or how you think we're progressing towards that.
Yeah, that's a great question. Because it's like, when you talk about like, oh, SBC, where does it fit in terms of like the utility? Like, truthfully, we're not on every large exchange. We're not on every on and off ramp like you see with like Tether and USDC. So it's like, okay, what is, people just want to pay with US dollars usually in a trusted manner. So getting to a place where like whatever stablecoin you start with can easily be sent to whatever stablecoin is like denominated in whatever somebody's charging money for, asking for money. So that's the ultimate goal. And we are starting to see like this idea of like a stablecoin clearinghouse come about. Initially, it started with like,
Yes.
okay, let's get cross-chain, things working in a trustworthy manner. But it could even be more than that. It's like, cross-chain has a lot of potential vulnerabilities sometimes. It's like, okay, it's like a lot of unknowns in terms of interacting with multiple networks, especially with value transfer. But having more of like for sure, it's one-to-one. This value, we know it's a trusted value to begin with. The end value that you're kind of selling with is also a trusted value. Whether that's many stablecoins in that process or just one or two, you're just sending money. So I think getting to a place where we have seamless, no slippage, no fee, one-to-one transfers is the ultimate goal. And I think that's starting to happen. And we explore that too. It's like just getting rid of like subsidizing gas fees is kind of like starting to think that way. And like having some ability to go from like one stable coin on a chain with some of our interactions and integrations to an end place with a different stable coin on that chain. And Braille helps us do this a lot with their API.
With the IO API, yeah.
Yeah, and it's there's still work to be done in terms of making that really efficient, but that's the ultimate like end user experience is just sending $1. You don't really care what it is. So
Right. And I think I've also seen how SBC can like sit in the middle of the flow of funds, and to the user, they aren't really seeing any of that. And so all they're seeing is like, okay, again, being able to do this transfer really effectively. Um, but it's SBC kind of under the hood powering that. And I think that's really powerful.
yeah, exactly. And that's kind of like the fundamental. Like SBC can be in those flows and just create that utility. We don't care if it's exposed as like, oh, you're holding SBC and it's generating more market cap to us. We just want to make sure it's a utility for developers or the networks themselves.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. In terms of, so a lot of this last year has been regulation updates. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously with Genius, we've seen just a lot of headwinds around that. Clarity, hopefully Mr. Diamond can get some of his opinions together and we get some sort of movement there.
Right.
Um, what's something about how policymakers are thinking about stablecoins that you wish more people in the industry understood?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, I'm always like, are people actually thinking about this or understanding it?
Yeah.
Maybe they are, but I would say like maybe it's like the broader, not so much the industry itself, but a lot of other people, maybe just like the rest of society. I really think the environment of banking licenses right now is interesting. And it's the combination of like SEC tokenization,
Yeah,
easy
because
way,
that was
like
new this week.
yeah, and it's like like add that to like it's probably been the easiest time to ever get like a banking license. And so you have like these very innovative fintech type banks that are launching. Like stablecoins will be the main like asset on those platforms, and that's kind of the biggest change. And like the way we think about like deposits might change over the next few years
Yeah.
if you have a banking license plus tokenization plus just like very like trusted layer of stablecoins now that we have like Genius and stuff like that. So yeah, I think the industry kind of is paying attention to that, but I think it's going to be like a bigger shift than what people think. And I really like this. I think there is a world where like there is a lot of bespoke stablecoins. So like these institutions realize, okay, we're just holding value in stablecoins. We're going to hold the value in our own stablecoin. That's just going to be the place where it sits. So
When we speak to FIs, the thing that like gets their light bulb going off is digital assets and tokenized deposits. Those are the two things that they seem to like intuitively understand. Um, I'm curious like what you think this kind of stack that's coming together will actually like bring to the fintech and money movement space. Like to me, it means like better efficiency, and yeah, just I think also a lot about like the expansion of the customer relationship that these entities have. I think a lot about how, I don't know, you have companies that are losing out their user base to like fintechs where like maybe Gen Z has a better relationship with Robinhood than they do their like traditional brokerage account.
right.
And so like what, yeah, like I'm curious, like from the regulation standpoint, like where do you actually see like some of this, the stack that's getting built out actually like impact the space? Like, are you seeing it more in like the efficiency side of things or something else?
Yeah, kind of the broad tokenization push. I think you'd see a lot of efficiencies. I would say in general, the credit markets. Let's take mortgages, for example. Like it'd be a lot more efficient if all your assets are in tokenized form, readily available, and like available for like, I guess, to be observed or like to check like these are your assets in your custody. Yes, you're approved for a loan type of thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's just a lot of inefficiency in terms of like, okay, get all these assets together, confirm that you are the title holder, It's not some weird trust or some, secondary ownership. That could be streamlined as an efficiency. And you kind of see that, like DeFi kind of hints at that. It's like, okay, you hold this asset, you can actually borrow from it, but let's get that into the broader credit kind of markets in the traditional finance world. I think that would just lead to a lot of efficiencies. And you could build programmability into there. It's like, oh yeah, your assets aren't covering this. We're going to have like some type of capital call, or we're going to have like some like, mortgage equity adjustment or like interest rate adjustment. That can be all programmed into it as well. Right now, everything is like very, very slow in terms of like changing interest rates or changing how much capital is necessary for something.
Right. And I mean, like you just get a massive extension of financial services on top of that. Like
right.
We see somewhat of the beginnings of this in some of our customers where like they'll have an integration, but maybe their audience and their user base finds off-ramping to be expensive. Mm-hmm. And so the solve there is have a stablecoin card where instead of off-ramping, you're just spending.
Yes.
And so it's happening a little bit, but I am very excited to see like that future that you just described where you kind of like bring this to the broader financial services market and extend on top of it. Because I think that's where you get some like really interesting primitives and like programmability to your point.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's good. Yeah. The credit card one is a great example. It's like, we don't have to off ramp it. Stablecoins are going to be the source of funds. So
just spend it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that proof point has actually really grown the last, 12, 18 months and kind of like proven itself. So
totally.
Yeah, I'm excited about where it's going. I think there's, it takes longer than what we in the industry probably think it's going to take. But the fact that things are happening is pretty exciting.
One thing that I actually haven't parsed this out yet, so I'm curious if you have thoughts on this from the regulation perspective. And if not, no worries. But I am very curious on how the position of yield is developing. I don't know if you have any thoughts there on that. At least when we talk to fintechs, like everybody is really interested on enabling yield on top of their stablecoin balances. But I'm curious if there's any thread there that you're following from the regulation standpoint that you're interested in.
Yeah, I think I'm pro yield in a sense.
Yeah.
But I understand. This is where it goes back to like, do we tokenize deposits in a fractional reserve banking system? Or are we like everything built on stablecoins? I think it's going to be both. Like at some point you tokenize deposits. Deposits are a form of money. It's not like it's not a form of money. That's what we count in the money supply. And then the bank, provides the yield based on their operations. And the stablecoins are this like T-bill in a sense. You're holding like 100% backed deposit. It's that narrow banking idea. And I think that could have yield too. So I'm like pro both sides. I understand the arguments on both sides, and I'm not really kind of like really pushing for either one. I think there should just be an option either way. I think the biggest kind of, banks have been slow to pass on yield because customers haven't been moving assets out of those non-yielding sources. That's the biggest thing. If all these deposits were leaving those banking accounts, then the banks would change their yield policies. Now, if we have a world where like stablecoins, tokenized assets, and all that stuff makes it easier to like programmatically move those assets away from non-yielding accounts, then it's like, okay, banks become more efficient because they're trying to like attract those deposits. So that's down the road, but like you should have a system where it's just like, oh, I have cash sitting here. I'm not going to need it for 4 hours. That 4 hours should be collecting yield. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that should be the system for everybody because that creates the most value for society. Banks aren't capturing all that yield. Society is. So
yeah, I didn't think about the deposits perspective.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
And one example is like Schwab. When you hold cash in Schwab,
yeah,
it doesn't earn any yield. You have to go like buy something.
I don't know, right? Exactly.
S-Gov, like treasuries.
Yeah.
Versus Fidelity, you hold cash in Fidelity, it's automatically in their money market fund.
Yes, correct.
So you start so that's I see like, +1 thumbs up Fidelity because they automatically do that for you. That's how banks should be operating with deposits. And you can do that in a much more efficient way with programmable money in a sense.
Right. Yeah, I didn't think of that in the bank context versus the broker, specifically Fidelity context.
Yeah, that's always bugged me with Schwab.
Use case.
So
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Very interesting. Okay, you've hinted a lot at stuff that you guys are excited about in the coming months. Is there anything else that you can tease in terms of the upcoming SBC roadmap that you're looking forward to or you're excited to see develop over the course of this year?
yeah, I think well, I'm going back to agents because that's a big focus, and I really want it to be. We want to make it super easy to like launch agents with payment capabilities, basically our platform support. And this is both on the ecosystem side and the like developer user side. And I think, we've started to build some templates with like Pinata and stuff like that. That's all open source on our GitHub. But we want to take it a step further. It's like, is there a way like this is integrated in a very secure way with the configurations you need? It's not just like a skill file, but it's like it's embedded with a platform. That's where I think we're going to go. And we're just kind of like, the tease is like the template right now. And like setting up like the seller endpoint or your buyer agent. There's a few steps there. But I think there is a world where it's like, okay, I'm calling this agent my financial research agent. It launches, it's configured with the wallet, it's configured with some resources. It has, stablecoin ready to go. It has access to the marketplace of potential financial information. That's all cool things to think about, like just unlocking the payment use case. So we'll keep pushing that.
Love it. And
I call this the agent stack too. Like it's like we'll keep building this agent stack, which other companies are using as well. But yeah, anything we can add to that stack is what we're going to be doing.
It's valuable. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I that's such an exciting future where you can just kind of spin up these like ad hoc agents that are taking advantage of some gated use resource and then coming back with information that you're just like paying for more efficiently. I think that's really exciting, and I'm like excited to be a user of that one day. I can't imagine you building anything else given your depth of knowledge in both like economics, fintech, and SBC as a company. If you weren't building SBC, what would you be working on now?
Well, I think since you know me and my fandom of Warren Buffett, so yeah, I would. So that's a great question. I would start a hedge fund basically.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So like, and it's like, okay, hedge fund. It would be very, like the world we're in right now. I think there's a lot more inefficiencies. There's a lot of short-term thinking. Go back to like the early Buffett partnership. Like go back to the fundamentals, long only, like concentrated, deep research. All that stuff is interesting because there's like a time arbitrage play that is more and more valuable in this crazy world we live in right now with meme stocks and all that stuff, and all the AI disruption. So that's always been like, the investment environment's just super interesting right now. And going back to like the value investor kind of Buffett philosophies is always something that's interested me. So,
how was that?
Yeah.
How was the Berkshire meeting, by the way?
It was great. Yeah, every year it's a good kind of rehashing of those ideas. It's a good routine. This was Greg Abel's first year, so quite different.
Yeah.
I think that, Berkshire's in good hands. Not a whole lot of like, fun little snippets to laugh about, but Buffett was its own kind of character. But I think, Greg Abel was very like to the point and very businesslike. And it's like, I just think like,
Do they have rapport? Like I know Charlie, like they had a bit of a rapport, but yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah, well, he kind of did with Ajit Jain, which is like the main insurance person.
Okay.
He's the head of the insurance. But yeah, it's a little different kind of vibe. But it's still a very good event. I think Berkshire's like always, like that whole philosophy is always a good reminder in like the current environment. I just think that like it's very high speculation with this whole AI, even like the crypto world too. So I always kind of like go back to those fundamental ideas. Think about like, are we building something that's valuable, that's cash flow producing, that's, something that's beneficial for society in a general sense. That's the key. but yeah, I like thinking about the future and investing's interesting intellectual activity. So I'd probably just default to that. So
Were there squishmallows at the?
yes, yes, and I have one for you. So next time I see you,
Amazing. This podcast will go out with like a photo of the squishmallow.
perfect. Yeah,
Fun. Perfect.
it's good.
Decided.
I still have them.
Oh, great. Well, I mean, like, I say this as a friend, but also as someone working on Para and like someone that sees a lot of different projects, like incredibly bullish on SBC and everything you're building. I think the partnerships you guys have worked on so early on are incredibly powerful. The infrastructure is incredibly powerful. We are users of SBC. And yeah, I'm excited to see kind of how the agentic side of things kind of play out, especially with the launch of the agents platform. We're building out both sides of the marketplace. I think there's like incredible demand for this, and yeah, stoked to see what's going to come. So thank you so
Yeah,
much.
me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, and I'm excited to see what you guys keep building too, because we find it super valuable. Yeah, it basically unlocks a lot of what we're trying to build. So I guess the viewers of this like definitely dig into Para.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jeff.
All right, I'll see you later. Thanks so much.
Okay.